8 to 10 lakh youngsters every year give this exam. It's perfectly okay for a candidate to say no. Some little stress will always be there in any kind of exam or interview, or itna hona bhi chahiye. Analytical part is actually the most important part of the civil service interview, and answer it what is ethically right and positive and full of hope. Being tense is okay. How you handle that stress, and that is what is more important.
My stockings filled with acid. Am I dreaming? What just happened?
I am your host Gaurav Garg, and we welcome all our viewers to our show Amazing Mentor. Today with us is Yogender Chaudhry sir, a distinguished figure whose influence spans far beyond his bureaucratic title. Yogender Chaudhry sir, career rooted in service and driven by profound sense of purpose, began as an Indian Revenue Service officer in 1989 batch. However, it is his impassioned advocacy for youth empowerment that has truly set him apart. Throughout his tenure, whether in the corridor of power or in the trenches of grassroots initiatives, his focus has remained steadfastly on nurturing the potential of young minds and fostering a culture of inclusivity and opportunity. In this show, we will talk about if and buts of UPSC interview preparation. So let's welcome Yogender Chaudhry sir to our show Amazing Mentor. Welcome sir.
Namaskar.
So our first question, could you shed some light on what the UPSC interview panel primarily looks for in the candidate and how can aspirant align their preparation to meet this expectation?
The first exam conducted by the UPSC, first part of the civil service exam, is basically a screening test because almost 8 to 10 lakh youngsters every year give this exam. So that is such a large number for any selection agency to handle. So the first part is a elimination grind count kind of a thing where you do screening of people and then a certain number reach the mains exam. Now the mains exam is a narrative exam. So your knowledge and what you have studied, there's an optional paper, there are other papers, is all tested in the mains exam. Now the last part is the interview, and interview is more for kind of a aptitude test to see whether you are psychologically and otherwise suitable for this job or not.
So how important is the detailed application form filled out by candidate and what tips can you give for presenting oneself authentically yet impressively through DAs?
The candidates are mostly not known to the interview panel. So it is that gives you a basic idea about the candidate. So the importance lies in the fact that DAF is the only thing before they meet the participant to know about him and make the first opinion. So many times, the beginning of the interview process starts from that. So it's not that overall the whole thing is dependent on that, but it is important that some questions will be asked from that and you should be very well prepared for that.
So what do you think, saying yes and replying each and every question asked during interview is compulsory or not?
Not at all. It's not also physically possible for any person, including us with so much of experience and knowledge, that you can answer every question which is asked from you. So it's perfectly okay for a candidate to say no, I don't know this subject, and it's perfectly fine that the interview board is very supportive and they take care that this person does not know that. Your knowledge is not being assessed. The way you answer, your confidence, your opinions, how you take up the questions and how do you react is more important. So if you don't know anything, it's perfectly fine to say that you don't know, but सबका जवाब ऐसे नहीं देना है.
So can you discuss the role of body language and communication skills during UPSC interview and suggest way to improve them?
You can say it easily, but changing your personality and the way you react is not very easy. but your communication skills and how do you articulate the issues has a important role in the way you communicate to the other person that who you are and what you are. So some importance is given to that in any mock interview or things. They will teach you that you enter and you wish everyone, you wish the chairman first, and then you don't sit unless you are asked to sit. So it's primarily basic manners and etiquettes which are there in the society itself, which are important.
So, how effective are mock interviews in preparing for actual UPSC interview? And what should aspirant focus on while participating in these mock sessions?
Mock interviews are like preparations and creating similar environments. So, if the mock interview is being conducted by people of the same age and target group, which is there in the UPSC, so more or less they will ask you similar questions. And then what they suggest to you that your content is not prepared or something about the way you answer it or the thing way it is negative answer, so not suitable for a youngster. So that is in itself can be a good guide to everyone. So mock interviews play a very important role in preparing a youngster who has not yet appeared in an interview to how to prepare for the thing.
So, what strategies would you recommend for managing stress and nervousness on the day of interview to ensure peak performance?
Not only interview, for life itself. If you are prepared well, if your content is prepared well, if you have practiced it, then you will not feel the stress. Some little stress will always be there in any kind of exam or interview, or na hona bhi chahiye. But then it's the way you handle that stress that is important, and preparing for it in advance, preparing your content is something which gives you that confidence to face it. It is like that prayer many of us sing in the morning, इतनी शक्ति हमें देना दाता मन का विश्वास कमजोर हो. So आप अगर अच्छे से तैयारी करेंगे और मॉक इंटरव्यू करेंगे दोस्तों के साथ या सब्जेक्ट स्पेशलिस्ट के साथ, पॉसिबल क्वेश्चन सब आप थोड़ा तैयारी करके जाएंगे तो आप उसको अच्छे से दे सकते हैं.
So, given the importance of current affairs in the UPSC interview, how could candidates prepare to articulate their opinions on various issues in a balanced and informed manner?
Not current interview itself, but the analytical part is actually the most important part of the civil service interview and the way UPSC conducts the interview program. Most of the major part of the applicant is assessed on the basis of which how they give answer to the tricky questions which are thrown at them. So some little question is always possible from the current situations which are going on, because that's a very easy and a very expected thing to ask. So to put the candidate at ease and to warm up kind of a thing, current questions are asked. But the crux of the thing lies in the being analytical, and then suppose your opinion is asked. So rather than giving a emotional answer or a very sweeping answer, you go by the pros and cons or the strength and weaknesses of that issue, and then in the end come to a conclusion and give a answer which is full of hope. So for example, suppose you are asked that what do you think about demonetization? Okay, so your answer should be a little bit of background. So I'll try that answer for the youngsters. You say that for a government which came to power and a sweeping power on the basis of anti-corruption plan, it was expected that they take some visible action against corruption. And along with the feedback that there is rampant fake currency notes and also wide cash economy going on. So it was thought that this should be the right thing to do at this stage of the economy. And when this effort was done, then that time question was before the government was whether they keep it secret or they ponder all the issues and do a very thorough thing. So government decided to go for secrecy and keeping it confidential till the last moment. And in the process, some little problem here and there was left unattended, like the note of the new notes which are coming up were smaller in size than the earlier notes, so they were not fitting into the ATM slots. And since this thing was not anticipated earlier, no warning was given, so it took some time for the new slots to be made for the ATMs, and that caused some harassment, some little problem for the people who wanted to withdraw cash. So, but in the overall, if you look at the impact, then it had a very saluting effect in removing the fake currency which was flowing in from the neighboring countries and troubling our economy. Also, it has given a huge boost, which is being recognized by other countries also, to UPI and the digital transactions. It had a very salutary effect on the tax collection process, which is itself is digitized, and now all transactions are being monitored and the 360-degree profiling done. So all informations come. Since the taxman also knows what is going on, what is shown, and all connected through the Aadhaar platform and the banking FIU. So very less random questions are also being asked from the general public. So saving lots of harassment to the general public, because the taxman already knows the whole picture and so doesn't ask you stray questions. In the end, if you look at the whole thing, then it was a very beneficial exercise, and whatever little problem was there has been recorded, noted by the government, and we all hope that in future, whenever such an exercise is done again, the lessons learned from this one will be used and we will do even a better thing. So if you look at my answer, I have given the pros, the benefits of the effort. I also narrated whatever little problems were there on the other side, and then in the end, concluding it with hope that we will do better, will move ahead, the country will go forward. So this is the basic format for any opinion being asked from you. Most of the candidates are assessed on the basis of how do they handle these tricky questions. There are no exact right or exact wrongs. So there's no perfect answer for these questions, and it's the way the youngsters handle this kind of a googly questions. I call them jokingly. They are assessed at how good or how the scoring will be. So this is the way it should be. Another suggestion I like to make is that somewhere in your answer, if you can practice and if naturally your faith in the Constitution, your love for the nation, your hope for nation building and that the country will go forward, and that how UPSC is probably one of the few institutions about whose not even a doubt has ever been raised in this entire thing, when every other institution was attacked by the youngsters or doubted about their integrity or whether they are fair or this one temple of democracy has remained spotless. So whenever I pass through Shah Jahan Road, I look at that building and the people who make that institution with lots of respect. We do this coaching for the youngsters in Sankalp here, and youngsters come from all over the country. So states where their own public service commissions are not very fair or don't have good reputations, they also come to UPSC exam with the hope कि यहाँ पर तो जो भी होगा फिर वो ईमानदारी से होगा. Not even a doubt has ever been raised about this institution. So hats off to them and a huge compliment to them. But showing, positivity, showing that they want to change something, for the poor and the downtrodden, what we call अंत्योदय, कि सबसे गरीब के लिए कुछ करेंगे और कुछ करने की तमन्ना है, देश को आगे ले जाने की तमन्ना है, लोगों की सेवा करने की तमन्ना है. ये अगर आप अपनी जवाब में कहीं झलकेगा, और अगर अंदर होगा तो जरूर झलकेगा, पैशन दिखेगा कुछ करने का, बदलने का. So I personally feel that if I am in the interview board, will love to have such a youngster in the civil service.
So can a single question asked to you more than one time just to see the presence of mind?
A normal interview time is 35 to 50 minutes, and chairman and the other members are there, so hardly there's time for normal questions also. All of them, so I never heard that a question was repeated. But sometimes questions are asked just to see that how do you handle it. It's like, suppose your question is geography or geology, so question can be asked that how do you feel that geography will make you a better IAS officer? No, and sometimes the youngsters, they are not anticipating this kind of a thing, so they are totally confused about it, or they go overboard, rather than keeping the balance. They say मैं ये कर दूंगा और यही सबसे best subject है और ऐसे है. Well, the real answer is something very subtle, and say कि sir, it's one of the subject in which graduation was offered and I liked it or I got it, and so I did graduation in that. And tomorrow, what kind of officer I'll be will be dependent on the kind of training you will give me in that beautiful academy, and a long, very thorough, one of the best trainings combinedly from in corporate and government sectors. So, and tomorrow, while doing my duties, if I get a subject matter which is related to geography or related to maps, hopefully I'll do a slightly better thing than the others who had not studied geography. So something like that, which is very balanced, closer to truth, and a very subtle thing, humble answer.
So how can candidates effectively use their hobbies and interests mentioned in DAF for their advantage during UPSC interview?
Hobbies reflect on a kind of a person you are, but you should be very truthful about it. And many times there are people who are only studious, who are not very outgoing, and they don't have a hobby, or they are introvert. So it's perfectly fine to say that only one hobby was there or this was the hobby, because then you'll be asked questions on that. These persons sitting in front of you are expert in their subjects. So many times, to impress people, suggest that you write this hobby and then you read about it, and no need to go that far. It is one of the 1,000 things which is being assessed about you. So you write truthfully what was your hobby, and then be prepared to answer about it, because it will be checked whether what you have written is true or not.
The UPSC interview often involves question on ethical dilemmas and situational reactions. How should aspirant prepare to tackle such questions?
As I suggested earlier, that the questions are mostly thought-provoking and don't have a perfect answer or a perfect denial. So the youngsters should absorb the question, take a few seconds to ponder on it, and then come up with a positive answer which is analytical and which has balance. So it looks into the both sides of the things, and then answer it what is ethically right and positive and full of hope.
So for candidates who are preparing again after the previous attempts, how should they utilize the feedback from their last interview to improve their performance?
As far as content is concerned, there is no benefit to them, because any question can be asked, and so you cannot prepare subject-wise or what will be the question. You cannot guess it. What are they going to ask? But the way you answer it and the way you avoid sweeping statements, you avoid negative connotations, देश की जो एक उम्मीद, उमंग और एक दिशा चल रही है गवर्नमेंट की, जो आप गवर्नमेंट ही ज्वाइन करने जा रहे हैं, तो उसमें आपको उसके अनुरूप ही दोबारा से प्रिपरेशन करनी चाहिए. सो इट्स द वे यू आंसर द क्वेश्चंस एंड द वे यू टैकल थिंग्स which is more important than the actual subject. Subject knowledge has already been tested. It's a personality test. So the way you will tackle these things and very tricky questions, or as I said, googly questions, and how do you react to that bodily, and are you smiling, how tense you are, and being tense is okay, how you handle that stress, and that is what is more important.
So, what last minute preparation tips or advice can you offer to aspirants to boost their confidence and ensure they are in the right frame of mind during the time of interview?
I'll say be well prepared, study well, try as all possible questions on your subject matter and your DAF. Then, so practice and being well prepared will give you confidence to go and face it easily. The night before, go to sleep, have a proper 7-8 hours sleep in the normal cycle, what you normally do. Don't sleep late, because deprivation of sleep will look on your face next day. And then move to the UPSC well in advance, so that if there are traffic jam or there is a puncture in the car, that does not raise your stress level. You're already slightly full of anxiety excited about the best government service exam you are giving. So that will not be right thing, because it will add to the stress you have. It will add panic to that. And be relaxed about it. You already know that it's a very fair selection process. The people who are taking the exam, they are all achievers in their life, with almost 30 to 40 years of public life ahead of them. They're all very supportive. I have not heard one feedback from any youngster who had appeared that it was not a good experience. So that means the boards are very supportive and very caring, and they know that these are young, bright youngsters. They are the future of the nation, and they've reached so far, so they are good. So they are very, very supportive. So knowing this thing, that the institution itself is fair and the people there are all supportive and all achievers, so that in itself will make you relax.
So my last question, so what was the advice which you have got while you were appearing for the interview?
I was working that time, and so my confidence level was slightly better. So working, and then somebody who is just coming out of a college, some little difference is always there in handling it. So, and I was given almost similar advice by a friend of my father, who was a ex-civil servant, that you be analytical about the questions being asked, especially opinion questions. He also told me, I asked him the same question, that suppose I don't know the answer, he said, you honestly say, sir, I don't know, and it will be okay. He said, even if you do it 2-3 times, it will be perfectly fine, because you're not being assessed there on your knowledge, you are being assessed on your attitude and your personality.
Thank you very much, sir, for your time and sharing your precious experience on the interview side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gaurav. I hope that this will guide the youngsters, and they are most welcome to join this beautiful service, whichever service they get and they come. It's a wonderful experience. I thoroughly enjoyed my own service. It was recognized also. I went abroad to study it, and the training is one of the best possible, and you get to serve people, you get to contribute to policy making, you get to actually be part of the nation building. So it's a wonderful experience, and I welcome all bright youngsters to apply for the UPSC exam and come and be part of the civil service. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.